Let's talk about spending time with family and friends
without spending a lot of money doing it.
This is definitely the time of year when there's a whole lot of entertaining going on. There are a lot of parties to attend. And if you're like us, there's a lot of parties that you intend to host in the next few weeks. We love entertaining and realize that there's a lot of things that we do that allow us to have family and friends over for some really great times without breaking the bank to do it. So those strategies are what we will share in this video. So let's party
on a budget.
If you don't know us, I'm Hope.
And I'm Larry.
And this is Under the Medion, where every week we talk about practical frugality. All right, the first thing that we do in order to have friends and family over without breaking the bank is
plan a budget and a theme.
That's right. We don't start anything to do with that party until we know exactly how much money we intend to spend on that get-together and a theme, because nothing's funner than a party with a theme. Now, the nice thing about that is once you pick a theme, then you can plan a lot of low-cost DIY things to go along with that theme. And that's why it's super important to figure that out well in advance of actually even sending out invitations to the party. Now, when it comes to the budget, there's more than just food to consider when it comes to a budget for a party.
No, if you're going to have a party, you have to decorate for it.
Of course.
You've got to figure the party decor.
Now, in addition to that, of course, there are maybe some party favors you might want to send home with your guests. One of the things we like to do is we put party favors at each place setting at the table so that when the guests leave the party, they just take that party favor with them and take it home. So that's nice. It kind of does double duty that way. But the other thing, of course, that you want to determine is if you're going to buy paper products to go with that party. And in addition to that, as we mentioned, of course, food and drink. All of those areas combined, that is your budget for the party.
The next thing you want to do is keep it simple. Use basic colors, things that you can use over and over again. You don't want to use just like pink, which you can only maybe use for Valentine's Day, but use like, blues, greens, reds, whatever, that you can use repeatedly. Create your own entertainment. You can do all kinds of things. You can play games or cards after dinner. You can do a white elephant gift exchange.
We do that every Christmas season
with
so much
several
other couples that are friends of ours.
I always like to have some really nice background music playing too, to just kind of set the mood.
This is definitely Larry's thing. He picks background music that goes along with the theme of the party. And then he also makes sure, he's also in charge of making sure that that music is at a nice low level so guests can hear it, but it's not overwhelming so they also don't feel like they can carry on a conversation.
When it comes to letting people know about the event, you can call or text or even send out invitations to let them know when and where the party's going to be.
Yeah, I think, it's very different than when we were first married or even when we were kids growing up. It was considered very unacceptable not to send an invitation to a get-together through the mail. And I really think that has sort of been broken in the past few years because it's just so much easier to make an invitation. You can even create it in Canva if you want and download it as a PDF and then just send it to friends and family via email. And I think that socially, that's pretty acceptable these days. Tell us what you think in the comments section. Do you still think, gotta send them out by the U.S. Postal Service, that just is not an appropriate get-together, or, yep, send it by email?
It's really popular, too, to set up an event on Facebook that people can respond to so they can kind of RSVP to your event and you'll know about how many to expect. Shop seasonally for ingredients.
This, of course, relates back to the menu that you're going to plan for the event. And anytime you can plan a menu that is centered around one centralized ingredient, I think that is so much fun. Now, here at our house, every Christmas, Daniel and I create a 4-course candlelit dinner. And when we do that, we always have one ingredient that shows up in every single aspect of that 4-course dinner. So we've done cranberries, which showed up in the appetizer, which also showed up in the salad, in the muffins that went with the dinner. It also showed up somewhere in the main dish and somewhere in dessert. That is just a really fun and interesting way to plan the menu so that, especially if you have an ingredient you were able to get low cost. So for instance, in the spring, you're always going to find citrus on sale, particularly January, February, I guess a little bit before spring. That's when you're going to find those citrus fruits on sale. In spring, it's going to be strawberries and asparagus you're going to find on sale. In the middle of the summer, especially here in the Midwest, you're going to find sweet corn, tomatoes, green beans. You're going to find all kinds of peppers. Basically, here in the heartland, like everything ripens in the middle of summer. But you're going to find a lot of low cost in some of those ingredients that make great picnics or great cookouts, that kind of thing in the middle of the summer. Then when you get toward fall, you're going to find apples, and you're also going to find winter squash on sale. So think about seasonally buying things when you're getting ready to have a get together, because those seasonal ingredients, those are the ones you're going to find that drop way low in price, and you're going to be able to plan your entire menu around one or two seasonal items. That's going to overall drop dramatically the cost that it is for the food for the party.
Now, you don't always have to just hone in on saving all the time. Plan a few splurge ingredients. These are ingredients that you're going to pay a little bit more for to kind of spice up the party.
Now, listen, if grandma's fudge requires that you buy a specialty chocolate, buy the specialty chocolate. That whole thing of the memories that brings together when you make that fudge and it's grandma's fudge, it is worth every penny that you're going to spend on the specialty chocolate. So always leave a little bit of wiggle room in your budget for those one or two higher priced items that you're like, gotta do it, really important to me. And then you can do it without guilt, knowing that that was already incorporated into your budget for the party.
Always serve an appetizer. You know, Hope and Dan will get a little dish, like one of those glass sectional dishes ready, and they'll put it out on the coffee table in the living room for people to kind of stack on while they're coming, they're arriving, they're sitting down, we're kind of chatting, we're not quite ready to eat yet. It just kind of helps to kind of get in the mood of the party and sets the tone for the event.
It allows your guests to sort of congregate and feel like they have something to do while they're chatting, getting to know one another, or reacquainting themselves with whatever's happened in their lives since the last time that y'all got together. But it also takes the edge off that appetite just a little bit if you've got a few well-placed appetizers in an area where guests are going to be able to find it and find it easily. And always make sure that you have a few little waters out there, maybe a pitcher of water. If you don't want to do bottled waters, do a little pitcher of water, and also some small water glasses there at the appetizer table.
Don't be afraid to serve breakfast or brunch. You know, this used to be a lot cheaper before eggs started going up in price, but things like pancakes and so on are a lot, you know, they're not that expensive to buy and serve.
You've got French toast, you've got breakfast casseroles, any of those kind of things, you can make them ahead. That is gold when you are entertaining. Anything that you can make ahead, you can make large volumes of them, and they serve a whole lot of people, and they're very filling.
Another thing you can do to save money is skip the alcohol. You know, you don't have to serve that at the meal. Serve tea instead, maybe some flavored teas. That's what we did for Thanksgiving. Hope had, about 3 different flavors of teas. And boy, they went over well. I think they drained them all the same day, didn't they?
Now, so going back to the brunch idea, instead of doing mimosas, you are going to skip the champagne and adding that to the orange juice. Instead, add some sparkling flavored water to that orange juice, or just add some club soda to the orange juice. You're going to get sort of the idea of a mimosa without the expense of buying the champagne.
You know, bread is really filling, and Hope makes some of the best homemade bread. She made some for our Thanksgiving dinner, and she made several different kinds. She had bread rolls, and then you had a cinnamon bread. It was made kind of in the shape of a bundt cake. Really fun. And she served that after dinner, after we'd come downstairs and we were getting ready to watch some TV together as a family. So there's all kinds of things you can do. Bread is very filling, and it's not very expensive, especially if you make it homemade.
Don't limit yourself just to yeast breads. Consider the fact that making homemade muffins is very easy to do and very inexpensive. You can also make cornbread or cornbread muffins. Once again, very easy to make. And think about what those bread products would go best with. For instance, if you're serving soups or serving stews, then something like a cornbread is going to go along with that very, very well. So think of bread in terms of what is this going to pair really well with.
You might even think about skipping the meat. It's getting pretty expensive to serve meat. But if you do serve it in small proportions. You can use it in casseroles or in soups. There's all kinds of different ways to kind of pare down the proportions so you're not spending as much money on that one item.
When we think in terms of serving bread, we mentioned the fact that serving bread is important because it's inexpensive and it's also very filling. But there's something else that's also very inexpensive and very filling that you want to think about maybe making the basis of your meal when you're having company, and that is serve a starch.
Yeah, we start out usually with a starch like rice or noodles. Quinoa is another good starch to use. There's all kinds of different ways. These are pretty inexpensive, and they're also very filling.
Quinoa, of course, is one of the starches that's on the more expensive side. But once again, very, very filling. So really, if you're using 4 cups of quinoa, you're going to cook that with twice as much water as quinoa. So you're going to wind up with a whole lot of quinoa once you get it cooked. Always remember that those starches, like the quinoa or
There's rice.
or the rice,
Yeah, rice.
it's going to expand at least double in volume compared to what you start out with.
You might consider a themed food bar.
We have done this a lot. One of the things that we did for Mother's Day is I made a huge amount of vegan meatballs, and I served those in a huge bowl. We got some hot dog buns on clearance, so I think we paid 25 cents for each package of hot dog buns.
Oh, at the Amish store.
Yeah. So we cut those in half, toasted them, put them out on a big platter, and then we had meatball subs.
They were good.
So we had a whole lot of different toppings that one might traditionally find on a meatball sub sandwich, and we let our guests sort of create the meatball sub of their dreams by combining all or any or all of the ingredients that were on the table. That's an example of taking something that is just really basic and creating a food bar out of it. We've done the same idea with a taco bar or a baked potato bar, an appetizer bar, a salad bar.
Of course, the salad bar.
Yeah, right. Any or all of those can be really, really helpful to help feed a crowd and stretch some food that's very inexpensive to do it.
Don't be afraid to accept help. Go ahead and have your guests bring some dishes. Maybe coordinate that so you don't get duplicates. But that will help not only bring the cost down, but bring some variety into the meal.
Look deep into my eyes. It is okay to have your guests bring a dish to your meal. It is perfectly fine for you to do that. Do it. It's okay. They won't feel bad because most of the time they're going to offer.
If you serve sandwiches, make them ahead of time. That's one less thing you have to do the day of the party, and they keep really well. You can always cover them in ceramic, put them in the refrigerator, and bring them out when it's ready and time to serve them.
Well, serve them on a pretty tray. You might want to leave the condiments off when you're creating those sandwiches ahead of time. If you're going to have like a sandwich bar, you're going to have meat, you're going to have cheese out there, and those are very, very expensive. If you create the sandwiches ahead of time, then that portions out those more expensive ingredients. Just make sure that you serve the condiments separately because you never know what people are or are not going to want on their sandwich. But it actually takes much less time to take the lid off a sandwich, so to speak, put some condiments on there, and then move on down the buffet line.
Make your own ice. It's a good thing. Let's say 5 to 7 days ahead of your party. Empty out those ice trays, clean them out. You might have some kind of old ice in them. You don't want off taste in your drinks. So make fresh ice, make it ahead of time. You can always put the ice in bread wrappers and keep it in the refrigerator, and then you don't have to go out and buy a 10-pound bag.
Actually, make sure that you keep it in your freezer, not your refrigerator, guys. Keep it in your freezer. So make that ice ahead of time. This is where I do a super plug for the fact that if you're going to have a party of any kind, it's really important to have a master list of your theme, of your colors, of what you need to buy yet, of your menu, of guests who are coming. Are they bringing a +1? So you make sure that you're having an accurate counting of how many people are coming to your get together. And you're going to have on there, make ice 5 to 7 days ahead of time. And that way you're not going to forget to do it.
Consider using real dishes. Now, I know this makes for a lot of cleanup afterwards, but it is a little less expensive than buying paper or plastic. And you can always get dishes at Dollar Tree. You know, they make some really formal looking, they almost look like china. And we have done this several times, but that always kind of adds, I think, a little class to the party.
We actually, a few Christmases ago, Daniel and I challenged ourselves. We gave ourselves, I think it was $40, and we did all new place settings at the table. Now the silverware we already had on hand and the glassware, but everything else that was on that Christmas table, we actually bought used from various thrift stores. And we also got the nice white plates. We got them from Dollar Tree. They were really the Dollar Tree then. It was $1 per plate.
They were.
Now it's going to cost you $1.25 per plate. But Dollar Tree has some amazing patterns, some very, very pretty things that look high end, especially if you're going to do a candlelight dinner. They look high end and they really don't cost you that much. So just bear that in mind. But if you're going to do paper, once again, make sure that you are picking plain paper plates, plain colored napkins, because you want to make sure that if you have some left over, you're not stuck trying to serve a 4th of July party and you've got snowmen on your paper plates. Guys, don't do it.
Have a stash of take-home containers. You know, we save containers that maybe come from the grocery store, those big square kind of plastic ones with the lids on them, the clear lids. Those make great take-home containers, and they're free usually with salads that you might buy or different things from the store. That way your guests will have something to take some things home if they want to take some of the leftover food and keep it.
Yes, because if you're like me, you're going to cook and cook and cook, and it's going to be way too much, and you're going to have lots of leftovers to send home with your amazing guests, especially if they have particularly liked something. It's really nice as the hostess to say, let me send some of that home with you. You can have it for lunch the next day. We would love to know, what are your tips for entertaining and doing it on a budget? Tell us in the comment section. Now, if you want more tips about frugality and what frugality actually looks like in our everyday lives, not just when we're entertaining, we did a video on it, and we're going to leave that video right over there so you can take a look at it next. Because you don't know who's going to want.
That's okay. Her sound effects are just off the charts, I think.